Hi, everyone.
Hi.
We're here. You didn't scream.
We did it. I was holding it back. I was just
trying to have
sealing it in there.
Tim told us he was going to scream when we started this episode.
Surprise.
I'm kind of disappointed, actually.
This is another episode of God in Our City. Not the first, but the first like this.
Yeah.
And we're just very excited. I'm here with Tim Jara, Laura B. Nelson.
Laura B. Nelson, because there's a lot of Laura Nelsons out in the world. I'm just
Is there
gonna tell
really?
you. Yeah, I found that out when we bought our first house as a married couple.
There's so many Laura
So many
Wow.
Laura Nelsons. Anyway, this is Edmund Mitchell, by
yes,
the way.
my name
Edmund
is-
J. Mitchell.
Yep, the second, because there's two of us.
Oh, yeah, don't get confused with
Do you know
this
my
name.
middle name?
No, I don't.
You want to guess?
Tim Anthony Jara.
No. Sorry, guys. Nope.
Heath. Oh,
Nope.
Tim.
Starts with an M.
Michael.
Nailed it.
Wow.
Yes.
Tim.
Hello,
That's it.
Tim Michael Jara.
Yeah.
Jara.
My name is
Nice.
Edmund Mitchell, and I'm the Director of Evangelization here at St. Francis. And Tim and Laura, if you want to introduce yourselves a little bit as well.
Yeah, I'm Laura Nelson with a B in the middle if you want to be specific. And I am the coordinator of children's catechesis.
Nice. I'm the youth minister. Work with high school students.
What was your name again?
Oh, yeah. Tim Jara.
Tim Michael Jara.
Yep.
Nice.
J-A-R-A.
I like that. That's good.
So we're here. I mean, we've been doing some episodes of God in Our City, and we've done some podcasting before in the past. And we're hoping with this new setup, we could do this more often. So, again, just a quick introduction to this is a podcast out of our parish in St. Francis, and us trying to fulfill the Great Commission, alongside all of our parishioners and our pastor, our bishop.
Yeah.
So we're really excited to have a bunch of episodes talking about the mission of our parish, of our department of evangelization. And today wanted to talk a little bit just about this whole COVID situation.
Yeah.
Trying to
been a
keep it
thing.
short. Yeah, it's been a thing.
Been a big thing.
Trying to keep it short, but we've tried a lot of things during the quarantine. There's been a lot. I know for me personally, it was a crazy up and down journey, and I feel like there's a lot we could learn just from how we responded, or maybe how we wish we could have responded better. Or also a big thing is just what our ministries, the things that we've been working on and parishioners have been helping work on, how they held up. And honestly,
or didn't.
Yeah.
And
So-
that's real. That's,
So maybe maybe you guys can take us back to before the quarantine.
I can't remember that far
I
back.
know.
So much has
Well,
happened.
We actually went places and
Yeah.
saw people and
Yeah.
touched them. It
And
was weird. I mean, I could do this without people disinfecting.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do
We
that
should be
anymore.
wearing masks right now.
We actually should, right? Yeah.
Well, I do remember it was like a weird, are we going to start working from home? Is this really a thing?
Yeah.
And it just slowly ramped up.
I don't feel like it was slow. I mean, there was like a week
Yeah.
maybe of, wait, does this mean us too? Is this just New York and California, or is Texas a real thing and vulnerable? And then all of a sudden, bam, lights went out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And then no more masks. And, still masks, but no more public masks.
Right.
And then all of our in-person events.
yeah,
And
no more classes, no more high school young church.
and what month? I mean, that was...
That was
in
March, because it was basically we had spring break and then never went back.
Yeah.
It was the longest spring break ever.
A lot of people probably know this, but I mean, the majority of what we do is in-person stuff. So it was 99% of what we did was just for the foreseeable future, it's done.
Right. And it's so challenging because, the model that we go to is Jesus,
Yeah.
right? And how he spread the gospel and evangelized and related to people. And he didn't do it virtually. Granted, it wasn't an option then, right?
yeah.
I'm not going to say that virtual is bad,
Yeah.
but the model that we're trying to emulate is very personal and relational.
Yeah.
And it's harder to do that when you are not actually with someone.
And we've talked about this as a department, and this is definitely a conversation in youth ministry, large events versus small groups versus one-on-one discipleship versus family catechesis. And so it's something that is definitely on our radar. And for me personally, I felt like I really believe in, personal accompaniment, as Pope Francis says in Evangelii Gaudium. And I believe in discipleship. I believe in small groups.
Right.
But it was like a test. It was like, all right, what have you done?
Sure.
Time's up, hands up. What is happening in
Yeah.
small group discipleship or one-to-one? Who's texting you? Who's checking in on you?
Right.
Right.
Who have you built up relationships with?
Absolutely. I for one did feel kind of exposed in that light for two main reasons. One was what discipleship groups or small group ministry is going to continue to meet, because those systems and processes are already there. We've already invested in those groups and those people, so that even if we're not hosting large group events, like they could still meet, whether over Zoom or, a Google Hangout or FaceTime or that sort of thing. And it was, it was hard to accept that I hadn't, done a good job of that.
Yeah.
And so reality check there, but then also a little bit of shame with like the rush of trying to quickly put something out online.
Yeah.
And realizing very quickly that, that necessarily wasn't the solution in that, the best solution in the moment.
It was like a Band-Aid in a way. I mean,
Right.
a lot of churches on social media, not that it's bad. I mean, thank goodness that they're doing something.
Sure.
I mean, we've heard of some parishes that were scrambling just to find email addresses of all their parishioners.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, thank goodness that people were putting stuff online, but I agree. There's a feeling of like, what do we do? Do we just do like, it's like Merriam-Webster's word of the day, right? It's like, do I just turn on the camera and go,
this is what I'm thinking,
incarnation?
Hey,
and
let's talk about it. Yeah. Yeah, I felt that I commented to my family that it was really telling to see how quickly some businesses and ministries pivoted in this unprecedented time. None of us have a toolbox to go to from the last pandemic of how we ministered or how we conducted business. And so I was very impressed with those businesses and ministries and people who pivoted so quickly in such a creative way, recognizing that not everybody, just personality-wise, does pivot that quickly, or does, is stimulated in their creativity in that way. Because the reality is, as much as we're ministers, we were going through the pandemic experience ourselves. And so the emotion that went with that, the uncertainty, I had kids moving home from college. I didn't think they were going to be moving home from college. I have a high school kid who he thought he was just on extended spring break, and I had to break the news to him, like, dude, you're not going back. And he's like, what do you mean I'm not going back? I was like, you're not going back. And this is before they officially said that, but I'm like, it's not going to happen, honey. And so suddenly this time off was like, crap, I'm not going to see my friends anymore, So there's kind of a measure of depression and anxiety. What can we do? Where can we go? How do we relate to each other? How do we have good boundaries within our house?
Yeah.
And we weren't even dealing with actual physical issues, immunity impairments, or financial issues. We've been blessed that our finances have been stable in this time, but that's not true for everyone. So as much as me and my little wonderful blessed bubble was, stressed and anxious, there's so many more people who were suffering so much more,
I felt that a lot. I felt there's so many emotions in situations like that. And I say this a lot in other places, but I feel like it's worth saying. As I've gotten older, I've realized like the worst thing in situations like that is not how you feel in the situation. Like, oh, I feel scared, or I feel afraid, or hurt,
angry,
I'm hurting or angry or whatever.
Resentful or whatever.
It's like the feelings about feelings.
Sure.
Because
What do you mean? Like feeling bad that you feel stressed,
Yes,
or feeling
because I felt so much shame that I felt just scared, to be honest, and
Interesting.
I didn't want to admit to my wife that I was not handling the situation well, and I felt ashamed of it, and so.
Interesting.
It wasn't that I felt, if I had just acknowledged to everyone, to the team, like, hey, I feel kind of scared. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. But I was feeling feelings about that feeling, right? And so, I mean,
it's very complicated.
Yeah, and we were so fortunate, all of us. I mean, none of us died. I mean, we still have our jobs. We didn't get furloughed.
Yeah.
So it's a really strange situation. I know there are a lot of parishioners that have really suffered through this. And
We've had parishioners who've had COVID, and luckily, thank you, Jesus, that they have survived and recovered. But there are a lot of people who've lost their jobs. We're very close to DFW Airport here in Grapevine, and a lot of people are in the airline industry, and they have been hit very hard. So, we are very blessed, but the feelings are still there. And I don't know if this has to do with just personality, gender, age, experience, or what, but I didn't have the feelings about feelings thing as much. I was like, wow, we all have the right to do nothing. I mean, I was like, kind of like, very aware of we're all kind of suffering, and we just need to just kind of
chill,
lick our wounds and just kind of huddle up, But at the same time, I very quickly went to we're not going to go back to school, to in-person stuff, even though they hadn't officially. To me, it was obvious, even though it wasn't obvious to other people necessarily at the time. So I was like, what are we going to do? We can't just abandon our families.
And I feel like, we in some ways, after we kind of recovered from the shock, we fell back into, or I know I fell back a little bit into what's comfortable for me, which is, well, let's make content. Like, let's teach, let's put something out. And I think we all did that to some extent, and we tried it.
Yeah.
But I mean, what was your experience, Tim, of that?
I mean, you had mentioned earlier just like the word of the day, or, and I would, granted, it was a little bit more than that, like think about, an important message.
Like, you guys did a great job.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying, I do not want to belittle.
Well,
It was awesome. And I mean,
I think we did our best.
Phenomenal job.
I think we did our best. I think Tim knocked it out of the park. I think we did our best for the suddenness of what we had to do and the pivoting, like I said, but it was unprecedented.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
oh,
so
no, it's good. But yeah, I think I quickly realized how ineffective some of the methods were. Like we started with a Facebook live stream, and it was so hard to just respond to people or interact with people through the comments, and then and it was cool. It was a new thing for us. We weren't used to just doing live streams and that sort of thing. And then we went to Instagram and we tried that, and it was really similar. Like, we couldn't respond to the specific needs of people real time as easily, of course, than if we were in person. And then, we started doing like a daily Instagram live, just reflecting on the Gospels. And that was cool because it was definitely a smaller audience, right? And for those that tuned in, we could have, a little bit more back and forth. But as time went on, I realized there are a lot of people with needs that aren't being met. And so if, as a youth minister, as youth ministry, we're not ministering to the needs of the teens, then like, we're just, what are we doing, right? And so that was a struggle for me, and I think still is. Like, all summer plans are canceled, those sorts of things, and it really comes down to like trying to build relationships with people, with parishioners, with students, with teens in our community, any way we can. And I think one of the most meaningful ways to do that is a more personal touch. So the phone calls, or starting a small group, and like Zoom was huge for us, or Google Hangouts, because we could do the back and forth. Yeah. And so, we tried to do it with a large group. We didn't get a ton of attendance, but it was still way better than like a live stream, even though those were like, fun. So I don't know. Those are some random thoughts. I just saw there's so many needs that we need to meet, and it's just really hard to do that right now.
I think the thing that was revealed to me during this experience was how out of touch or disconnected I am with the parents in our program, because I'm focusing a lot on the catechists and the children and pouring into them so they can pour into each other. But I had to rely on the parents to enact or connect the children to what I was providing, the content I was providing. And it made me realize, one, that kids really don't want to watch a video of me. I mean, I'm awesome. I'm just going to say, I think I'm pretty clever, but it's not the way a child learns. It's just not developmentally where they are. And so, I mean, they can take things in passively, but it's not really learning for them. And it's just not engaging or interesting to them. So I really need to focus on working with the parents and partnering with them to help them be equipped in case something happens again and we can't do in person. So the parents feel like, oh yeah, I can look at this, video that Laura sends, and then I can work on stuff with my kids, So maybe the video goes to the parents next time instead of the kids. But that being said, I also recognized that all the parents were stressed out because they're trying to do homeschooling with their kids, which I've never done before. And it's not even true homeschooling because they don't get to determine what the schedule is and what there's being taught and things like that. So these other requirements that are thrust upon them, that they're just trying to get oriented. And plus, many of them are working from home, too. So I think the parents were completely overwhelmed, which I totally get. And so it was hard. I felt like I was thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Sure.
So it's like They're just trying to. They're at the very base of the pyramid. They're just trying to get their basic needs met. All right,
Yeah.
do we have food? I mean, do we have toilet paper? I mean, that was a
Oh,
thing,
my gosh,
right?
yes.
That was a thing. Toilet paper, yeast.
That was a real thing, yeah.
Yeah, bread. I actually made homemade hamburger buns one week
Wow, nice.
because
That's awesome.
we had flour and yeast, but we didn't. There were no hamburger buns at the store, which was a weird thing. I was like, okay, want hamburgers anyway. So. But yeah, just those kind of basic needs were just the main focus.
Yeah,
And so thinking about God and our prayer life and that kind of stuff was very, very low priority because they're just trying to survive.
There were so many. For me, I mean, I hate saying that I'm thankful that this happened because there was a lot of horrible stuff
things.
that happened.
Right.
But it really, I am really grateful in the way kind of the Lord exposed a lot of things that I felt like I really believed about evangelization, like a lot of really core principles.
Right.
And I think it really challenged the church and Christians in general because there's a lot of things about evangelization that that maybe even a lot of us believe. And but when you completely remove the parish from being an active location,
Right.
and you completely remove personal
You're decentralizing
Sure.
all of a
or
sudden.
you remove the power of mass communication because like mass communication or in large person events make us feel a sense of safety, like we're doing something.
Well, connectedness.
Yeah,
too,
and I mean, the name of this podcast, God in Our City, is to try to call to mind like if St. Francis didn't exist in Grapevine, who would notice? What would happen? And that's not to say if Catholics didn't exist in Grapevine.
Right.
It's to say like if the building and the bishop and our pastor wasn't here, if it was much more like other countries where there isn't the ecclesial church present, what would happen? You know,
Right.
like if we're, you know, like you read in Acts of the Apostles, like there was not a local parish where you could reserve a room or do a fish fry.
Right.
And so it's like, what evangelization happens when the church is kind of removed from the game?
Right.
And what did we do in our neighborhoods? What did we do? And I'm sure there are plenty of stories of parishioners doing things and really reaching out to others. And I know there are stories of that. But then the same thing with another principle is like person-to-person interaction and how important that was, the in-person phone calls.
Yeah.
All of these things. One of the ones that I wanted to talk about next is, and I don't know that a lot of people know this explicitly, but we try really hard as a staff, and I know I bug you guys like crazy about this, but doing ministry through people and not just to people.
Right.
And in the past, we've kind of gotten in trouble with this, or people get in trouble with this because it's like, well, shouldn't Tim be doing youth ministry? Why is Tim investing in trying to encourage adults to do youth ministry? That's his job, not their job.
Right.
But the
It's
opposite,
all of our
yeah,
job.
the opposite
Yeah.
is true. It's like
Yeah.
it's all of our jobs. And so that was another thing that really I felt like was exposed, was how much ministry are we doing through people? And it was really, really cool that the people I did have check in on me or wanted something from me or wanted my support were volunteers. The
Right.
volunteers that were really invested, that I've built relationships with, and those were the people that did get in touch.
Yeah.
And so I think it exposed like, well, how many of those people, how much time are you spending ministering through volunteers? I don't know if you guys felt that.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because to your point about, like why is Tim not doing everything or why is Laura not doing everything? Our role is so important in that we are here to organize, facilitate, and empower.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that we can have all of us building up the body of
Yeah.
Christ. It's not something that the parish has, the people of the parish has subcontracted out to us to do for everyone because it's all of our mission.
Yeah.
We are lucky enough to get paid to do it,
Yeah.
which is awesome. It feels luxurious sometimes to be able to do that. But it's not just us.
Yeah, and
right?
that like our main priority, our main task is to make ministry easier for people in our parish boundary.
Right.
Like our main task is to
and to help them learn to do it.
exactly and to like help with the budget and help with the admin and help with the facilities and empower. And that doesn't mean that we just say whatever you want to do.
Right.
So like the opposite end of the spectrum is I have a vision, so I'm going to do it. The other end of the spectrum is I have no vision, so let you guys do it.
Right.
And we're trying to find this balance of there is a vision. We're trying to carry out the Great Commission.
But it's a shared vision.
It's a shared vision.
Yeah.
And Tim can't reach every single youth in our parish boundary. I can't reach every single adult. Father can't reach every
Right.
single person. And if one-on-one relationships is where the best evangelization happens, we have to follow the method of Jesus, and we have to pour into 3, who pour into 12, who pour into 72,
Right.
and that's really the model. So that was really exposed for me in this time, just the importance of that,
Right.
the importance of that time spent with volunteers. And I don't even really want to use the word volunteer because I feel like that's not even like it doesn't give enough.
I like
It's
to
like
use
our lay
willing
partners.
disciple.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
like somebody who's willing to, share of their time, but
Yeah.
they are disciples and like
Yeah.
they're stepping forward and saying, because, another important part of this is, right, through our baptism, we're all called to be missionary disciples and we're sent on mission. But it's also like my gifts and my strengths, my charisms are very personal to me that the Lord has given me to go out. And if I assume for myself as a paid church worker, all of these tasks, I'm neglecting the call that God has given to you. So it's almost a disrespect or, like I'm disregarding what God's calling somebody else to do.
Yeah.
It's almost like I've got 2 coats in my closet. One of them belongs to the poor man outside in the cold. And it's like, I've got these 2 tasks and I could do both or keep them to myself. But like, it does a disservice to another parishioner at St. Francis if I take it for myself instead of sharing that burden, which actually does give life to us, right? Like
Right.
I say it over and over again, but like in Evangeligation, Pope Francis, right, he quotes himself in saying, life grows by being given away and weakens in isolation and comfort. And so there's something about like when we say yes to mission and yes to Jesus and we go out and we share those tasks or problems or opportunities to bring the gospel to people, like we all come alive. It is life-giving.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a good segue into just kind of re-explaining the parish, mission statement or vision statement. We want to build a church of missionary disciples. And part of the reason we kind of prayerfully chose that was because our goal is not just to reach people with Jesus. Our goal is to empower, like Jesus replicated himself and taught other people how to be like him. Like his ultimate goal was to reach the whole world, but he gave that mission to the people that he taught people how to be like him too.
And if you think about this, I mean, Jesus is God, right? He's one of the people of
Wait,
the
what?
Trinity. Jesus is God. Just FYI.
Hold on.
Hey,
I don't know that I can commit to that.
Jesus is God, but he could have done it on his own, right? He's omnipresent, omnipowerful, omnipotent, all the everythings, all the omnis, and he didn't need us, but he invites us into this process of taking part in our own salvation and redemption, right? And sanctification. So if we, I go back to this with regards to free will, if God is going to be humble enough to invite us measly humans into this process, we as humans have to also be humble enough to invite other humans into this process, right?
Yeah, sure.
And so it reminds me over and over again to not like hog the duty.
Yeah, I think that's a great place for us to start wrapping up. But again, like if we can build a church of missionary disciples, then we will reach our entire city
Right.
for Jesus. Like we'll invite people into relationship with Jesus. We'll walk with people into relationship with Jesus. If we're not focused on doing that task without doing the first task, which is to raise up leaders, is another word I was thinking. Like what you said, like a willing disciple, or like a leader. Like we don't want to just minister to bystanders.
Right.
We want to minister to leaders and raise up leaders in our parish. And imagine a parish where everyone felt that burden to be a missionary disciple in every single city, all around Texas or the DFW Metroplex. Like every person in every neighborhood in Grapevine who's a member of our parish feels that call.
Well, and if this time of COVID, isolation, and pandemic and all those things has revealed to us some areas that we need to build up in our ministries, perhaps it's also revealed to the people that we're ministering to their needs in a different way.
Yeah.
And maybe they are now feeling invited to either tell us what their needs are in a different way, or participate in helping fill those needs with other people.
Yeah, I think this is a call to a lot of people. Like, there might be people that felt like, and I'm sure this is true, there might be people that felt like, I wish St. Francis would have done more, or I wish these particular needs, like you're talking about, would have been met more. And to that, I mean, I would say, yeah, I wish I would have done more too. I felt like I could have done more. But also, who else in your neighborhood is a parishioner at St. Francis?
Right.
And if it's just you, or if it's just you and one other person, maybe God's calling you to realize that, I mean, who else will go? Like, who else is going to go? And who else is going to become a part of that? And that should make you feel a little nervous and scared. Like, I don't know that I'm equipped enough,
right.
To which, like, we want to help equip you. But it might also make you feel a little like, man, hopefully convicted that, I need to go. And so I think that's the great call, and what we're trying to build here is, building a church of missionary disciples. So with that, where can people go, guys, to find this podcast? There's a few different places.
There's a lot of places you can look. I found this out, So there's this website we have. It's called sfatx.org. And if you go to /online, you'll find all sorts of things. Yeah.
Also sfatx.org/God in our city.
God in our city is another
place.
Where
else can people find the podcast, do you think, Tim?
Under your doormat.
Yes.
Just kidding.
It's everywhere.
So YouTube is a great place, and then any place you find your podcasts.
Yeah. If you're listening to this, we have 3 cameras here, so you can also watch us in 3 different angles on YouTube. Yeah. We'll try to get it up on Facebook as well. On our website, you can watch it in video form or in podcast. So thanks so much for listening, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode.
Sounds good.
Right on.
Bye, guys.
Did we do it?
Are we still recording?
We did it.